Guys, I hope you don't mind. I'm recording this. If I can find where the record button is. There we go. All good. Let's make a start then. Right, so contact me if you're on some sort of police protection scheme or whatever. So tonight, hopefully we would have been nicer if we had more, but never mind. So we have got 4 attendees. I think Victoria might be babysitting. She might not be there, or she is there at the moment. So that's not a great start. I wanted to share the screen because I wanted to have a look to see if anyone has gone on to their subgroup later on. But tonight's tutorial is to take you through the timelines to give you a rough idea of what's going on. It doesn't look like anyone is able to use a mic, so use the chat to make comments. So I am doing 2 recordings of this, so one via the OU system, and there's one which I am doing a screen capture of. So hopefully screen capture will capture my face as well. Stephen, why are you sorry? Oh, okay, but okay, yeah. That's nothing to be sorry about. So the screen capture one, I'm going to try putting that on YouTube, see if that works. So we've got 2 tutorials, and this is only our tutor group. I kind of was hoping from previous years maybe I didn't emphasize or chase people up particularly, but I was hoping for about 12 tonight. So tonight is introducing the timeline, and this one on Sunday is kind of my deadline really to check that we've started to get engagement and if I need to chase people up for engagement. So we are covering any logistics queries about the TMA tonight really. So not really talking about the TMA itself, but any logistics. Try and resolve them tonight. So the YouTube channel where you can find videos of stuff from last year that I recorded. They're at this YouTube channel, which is Gobbledygook. But if you type in Google and then type in YouTube Ian Barton with a CNG at the end, you'll find the YouTube channel quite easily. Actually, let's see if we've got that up somewhere. Okay. Yeah, so it should come up for most explorers, and there we go. So click on that.
It is for all his students at the City of Bristol College, University of West England, Open University, and Plymouth University. In Enjoy.
Okay, so scrolling down to the very bottom, you've got your 210. Scroll across, and the one that you want to be looking for is the TMA7 playlist. And there we've got stuff that you want to be looking at later, really, but you might want to start going through the first one. So this is when you come onto your TMA7 that you'll have a look at them. But tonight's recording I'm going to try putting in here into this playlist, put it at the front. Okay, so that's that plan. So the thing that you would have looked at with your TMA4, you would be starting your modelling process, and they've chosen to do it this year by using a technique that they used to do at residential schools. And at residential schools, they asked people to mark other students' projects or thereabouts. And so last year they introduced this same idea. Previously, they tried to from TMA4 onwards, they try to get you sort of like doing some pre-work for TMA7, which I think the students didn't particularly find engaging or helpful. So this approach of you doing a pseudo marking of a TMA7 type of thing, that's what you're doing at the moment in your TMA4. And here we have obviously got some dedicated students. So we've got Stephen, Sophie, Victoria, and Natasha. And tonight is a night that we could all meet up as our tutor group. So there's what of you's probably that not many actually. There's I think we've got maybe about 12, 15 odd students. But well, if we don't get engagement from your other students, then that's an issue that I need to follow up on, and it's going to affect their marks. So tonight, let's look at the timelines and some key dates that I pulled out. Notice that in terms of the timelines, so Stephen, what are you asking about, question 1 or 2? Oh yeah, so question 1 or 2 is referring to, and your TMA4 is referring to like what you're doing for your TMA7, yeah? So in the timeline dates for Open University, weeks start on Saturdays. Curiously, that's as Islamic system. So I don't know the connection between that and the OU. So you start your when you're looking at these week dates, you notice that will have a week date, say the 27th of January, and that will be a Saturday. And so then it's so your weekend starts with your working week for the OU. Okay. So week 15, we've just hit it, and this is when we are checking that we've set up the modelling groups. So I sent out an email saying what modelling groups you're in, and I was using people's first names and an initial for their surname. So you've been allocated in modelling groups. Ideally they're looking for a size of 4, but 3 to 5 is also okay. And you should be working together and recording your experiences of working together in your subgroups. Okay. Now, how do we keep check that you're not doing all the work, which you being the good students attending tonight probably will be doing all the work? Well, that is then reflected in how you then interact with the wiki. So the wiki is then monitored. So there is a bit of comeuppance if you're not engaging with your group. Okay. So the thing that you need to do to start your TMA7 and to start thinking about your modeling experience that you're going to do for your TMA7 is to start working on the feature list. So tonight we'll just look at what we mean by a feature list. We're not going to turn our attentions yet to the TMA7. We can start that on Sunday if you like. So this was a good opportunity to meet your other group members, but unfortunately they're not here. Week 16, so that's my, or rather, that's the week Saturday coming up, and Sunday is my target date to check, for me to check whether people have made contact in your subgroup. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So let's try and pull the website across. And see if we can find it. I can't remember what it was now. So probably forums. Yours will obviously be different. And then if we go into here, so this would have appeared last week. And so for me, for you, you'll go straight into a group A, B or C, okay? But I can obviously select the different groups here. So I've got A, B or C. So we start off with A. Let's see who we've got here then. So someone said hello. So Jan has said hello. Thomas, Jan, they're chatting away. Okay, and Juan there. So that's group A. Any of you in group A, guys? Type what group you're in. Type the letter. So Steve's in C. Natasha. Victoria, where's your name? Could you not find your modelling forum, or it didn't make sense, I guess. So B, we'll see if Sophie said anything, and Natasha's in B as well. Okay. So I can't really help you. Obviously, I could maybe switch to search as student mode, but if we go one step up, so maybe try looking under resources. So that seems to be one way of getting down there. But I obviously used forums. So under forums, then I looked for something which had activity modelling groups, and that wouldn't have appeared until sort of last Saturday or so. Okay, so Stephen's been helpful to you there. Maybe you can grab that link. So that's the group A. It might not work for you, Victoria, because you're going to be in a different group, aren't you? So let's have a look at group B. So we've got hello. Got hello from Sophie. Sophie's. Oh, guys, no one said hello to Sophie. So Steve and Natasha, I think you need to say hello, don't you? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Right. And now let's go back and let's have a look at group C. So Catherine is there. And Stefan's there. Stephen's, well done, Stephen. Okay, so you're starting to sort of say hellos and things. Okay, so my deadline is Sunday coming, that you've gone on to that forum, and then I will be chasing up students that you following Wednesday if they haven't gone onto that forum and said hello. Okay. So then also on February, and then we'll have as Thursday. So the group allocation should be sorted out by this deadline. So maybe there might be issues, we might have to move students around, but that will be the deadline that things are finalised. Then week 16 to 14, so the week that's coming up, that's when you start doing your work, okay, and that you start putting in some time for dedicating yourselves to developing the model, which you'll do via the forum, and I haven't seen it yet, but via the wiki as well. Okay, I assume that'd be under resources, but let's not worry about that too much at the moment. Let's worry about the forum at the moment. So this is what we're looking at about 2 weeks' time. Yes, you do, Sophie. That's how you're being monitored, that you're engaging with each other. Okay. And that's what I will be monitoring. So the wikis and the OU Live. So there should be associated kind of. Hopefully this will work because they've changed obviously the OU Live tutorial rooms, but hopefully you'll all get an individual one where you can then go on to a session and have a group meeting, as it were, using that. That's the idea there. And it should be that certainly this is how it ran last year, but the problem is that the OU Live system has changed, so I'm hoping that you won't end up accessing other subgroups. But it should be definitely that you only see your own wiki, and hopefully you only have access to your own OU Live room. So students are required to use this wiki to document their working as you're working towards your first model. And you don't have to use the OU Live room if you don't want to. Most students in the past tend to just stick to using the wiki, okay, and maybe a bit of the forum. So I'm going to use the 11th of February as the target deadline to check that you've done something on the wiki, and that I'm making the big assumption that the wiki is going to be up and running. So how to use the wikis is described in your computer guide, so you can go for that. The wiki is pretty straightforward. It's just like kind of using Word or something like that. It's like a simplified WordPress if you've done any sort of HTML website development, but it's straightforward. And what they'll do is they'll set out the wiki so that there's a start page for you, which will look something like this. And they'll expect you to have, I think actually it will come already with these pages set up for you. If not, you need to specify them, but I think it will come with those terms. And that's the sort of the stages that you're that's reflecting your TMA report. So these are the bits that you're working on the project together. Okay, you can see this one dates back to 2014, this screenshot. And that is on the TMA. As I said, tonight we're not really dealing with this aspect, but you're going through this sort of process of specifying things, creating a model, doing maths, interpreting, evaluating, and then hopefully going through that chain in a couple of cycles until you get a nice model that's well evaluated. Your TMA will, for top marks, will be one where you've gone through that cycle formally, uh, uh, or should I say twice? So you've gone through once, and then you've kind of gone through a potential reiteration. So March the 20th, so that starts, that's, sorry, week 20, so that's the 3rd of March. That's a week when you're only supposed to be working on your modelling week, so you're not supposed to be doing any other TMA stuff. And that's when you've defined your assumptions, your variables, parameters, and you've created a first model. So that's the target date that we're doing this wiki work for. So around then you need to arrange a meeting with me to review your wiki. It doesn't have to attend, not everyone in the group has to attend there, but ideally we should. Hopefully you can get as many people you can from the subgroup, and we can have a discussion about what your wiki looks like, okay, and your model and so on. Then on the 31st of March to the 6th of April, that's your break time, okay, but obviously that's the time where you're going to actually be doing, probably starting doing a formal write-up, I reckon, of your TMA. So you, for this, what you're supposed to be doing is reading through Unit 18, and you review the model that you've come up with the group, and you start panicking. So that's the game plan for that. Let's have a nice break. Then I put in quotation marks week 25. So this is actually the end of week 24. So that'll probably be the 7th of April. Sorry, I can't confirm the date, but I don't have control over this. And that will be where the module leader will probably be freezing the wikis. So you can't make any further contributions, but you will be able to access them. So because that's when the wikis get marked, around that period. And you can then obviously go back to your wiki and still cut and paste stuff that's been developed there by you or your other teammates. And so week 25, so that'll be the 14th of April, and that's called the modelling week. And you will get to do individual and group tasks, where the group tasks are supposed to be things like finding data or evaluation, but you won't be able to add stuff to the wiki at that point. And other stuff that you could be doing is that you could start work by yourself in terms of evaluation of data and comparison of data for your personal write-up. So you all do an individual write-up, and you're using the subgroup experience as a springboard. The TMA7 is fairly self-explanatory. I've got some YouTubes where I sort of go through the guidelines of what we're looking for, and I'm fairly sure I did a YouTube of the best example from last year. It's probably not something you want to be looking at now, but something maybe in the future. On the 17th of April we have another group tutorial where we talk about how you need to be structuring the report. So that's your TMA 7, okay. Then on the 21st of April you can make any additional observations, experimental data to evaluate your model. So the principle is that you're happy with the model. Maybe you've made modifications yourself, and now you're using it to make predictions, and you're producing data to make comparisons and do a write-up. and you're drawing comparisons, you're doing write-ups, making observations, criticizing the model, criticizing assumptions made, and reviewing what assumptions could be improved. So the final iteration, so you've kind of gone through almost one cycle as a subgroup, and then you kind of go through another cycle by yourself. The 28th of April, and that's when you should start planning to submitting your TMA7. So you really should just be polishing stuff off at this stage. I recommend that you target the 30th of April Sunday to be the day that you're going to submit. The actual deadline is the 2nd of May, which is Wednesday, but make sure you try and get stuff done. You're not going to be able to get much done, I imagine, a couple of days beforehand. And the deadline they are very tight on, although I think the grace period will still apply. So if you miss the deadline plus grace period, I'm afraid you are in trouble. No extensions whatsoever are offered for the TMA7. So this kind of sums up the timeline that we've got for things. So week 15, this is the week we're in. So you read the introduction to modeling. You're being allocated into a modeling group, and you're going to draft a feature list for your TMA7. So we'll do that at the end of the week. And this is next week will be when you decide how you're going to be working together. Hopefully you can have an online tutorial. Hopefully that will work. The week after that's when I'm hoping that the wikis will be set up and that you start your work on your wikis. So that's 2 weeks down the line. You then are developing, these are my kind of like made up activities, kind of relate to the weeks. Develop your initial model while you're working on other TMAs on the week 20. So that is the special week that's timetabled when you are supposed to be just doing subgroup modeling, your modeling week. The week 24 is when you're starting to think about doing a write-up of your model, going through one particular iteration. You might be doing more work potentially in using like the online system, chatting with one another, and but you won't be able to contribute any more to the wikis. Week 25, that'll be, I can't guarantee this, but that will be where roughly the wikis will be frozen, and we will have a report writing tutorial on the 17th of April. And then week 26 you finalize your experimental data. That's what you catch yourself, and you should be working on evaluations and comparisons by yourself. Finalize your report and write it up. Okay. And then note that your deadline is the 2nd of May, but I strongly recommend that you submit probably the Sunday, which was that the 29th or the 30th of April, something like that. Okay. So yeah, I think we're discussing that you want me to send this PDF out, don't you? Yeah. Don't sue me for these dates, alright? These are all my best guesses when things are. Okay. So, the final thing is to always defer to the website just in case. Please note that no extensions whatsoever for TMA7. and what you're doing is you want to be reflecting this cycle in your wiki. So you want to try and give sort of titles to each part of this and show that you've kind of gone through this activity, this circle. You might want to do yourself a couple of times as a subgroup. So in terms of what we're expecting from you from the subgroup is the stuff in black here. So the specify and the purpose, and as I said, don't worry about this. We're not going to worry about this tonight, but the other bits where you are going to be working more by yourself is the revising the model and using the model. So this is what the process we're expecting you to go through. Okay. And what they want you to do to start off is by getting the concept of a feature list. And so for a feature list there's everything's possibly a feature for a model, really. There's no wrong or right answer. And so that will be part of specify the purpose of the model. Okay. Yes, Stephen? Okay, I've got some chat to read here. I need to scroll back a bit. So the people in our group will have a very similar report to us. Yes, in the sense that their first model will be the same. How they write up that model could be completely contrasting. So the fact that you and other people in your group are going to present the first model that you came up as a group is perfectly fine. That's not considered plagiarism or anything like that, no. And what you'll do is you write up the report individually, and the bits that will be kind of probably completely individual will be more towards the end of the evaluation and going through another cycle where you're going to improve the model by doing evaluation, compare the results, and that you then review your assumptions. So this will all be something that you're going to do by yourself, and then propose a new model. You don't actually then run that new model, but that'll be the point where you stop your TMA. You stop at that bit. See, so I said you kind of go through the cycle twice. I lied. It's more sort of like cycle 1 3/4 times. So as a subgroup, what we're doing is we're defining what the problem needs to be done. We're deciding what aspects of the problems we're going to evaluate. And so the initial sort of stages is this. So this comes under specify the purpose of the model. Okay. Next we've got create the model, and that will include things where you've stated assumptions, you've given a list of variables, parameters. It's not a big deal if you want to call everything variables. Basically a parameter would be, let's say, acceleration of gravity, so g 9.81. okay. So don't get too hung up on whether you're going to define something as a variable or a parameter. You won't get penalized for that. And that you've formulated your mathematical relationships. So when you're developing a feature list, all these aspects can be in the back of our minds of what is a feature in the model. Okay, so define the problem. So let's go for the apple falling down. So Newton's apple. So that the problem is that the apple's hitting Newton's head. What aspects of the problems do we need to evaluate? Well, we need to evaluate how hard the apple is going to hit Newton's head, let's say. State the assumptions. We're going to assume that when the apple falls from the tree, that it's going to hit his head, it's in alignment with his head. What other assumptions could you have? You could assume that gravity's acting downwards, like Newton did. And so we could have variables, the initial speed of the apple, final speed of the apple, these kind of things. And then formulate mathematical relationships. Well, it seems to involve the apple. Does it involve the mass of the apple? Possibly. Possibly there's a relationship there. So as I'm thinking ahead in terms of possible mathematical relationships, things that are features are what have we got at the moment? We've got apple, we've got velocities, we've got alignment, so the alignment of the apple. So these all seem to be features. A feature could also be whether it's a green apple or red apple. That's a valid feature, although in terms of the model, it's not going to be a valid, I think you agree with me, I think I'm correct here, that's not going to be a valid variable, is it? So that might end up something that we do mention, the apple is green or red, and that might be something that you put in your assumption that it doesn't matter whether you got a red or green apple. Valid but pointless, yeah. Well done, Sophie. So what happens to a feature? Well, with like the red or green apple, we might discard it or decide that that's an irrelevant feature. It might end up that we think that perhaps whether it's red or green is something that we might want to further clarify in the assumption that we assume that a red or green apple is not going to have a different drag or whatever. Or it might end up typically falling into a parameter. So I mentioned acceleration of gravity, or as a variable I mentioned velocity. Okay, that's typically where we would expect features to end up. So what have I put a star there for? But this is reconsidered later if the model is unsatisfactory. So your assumption might be something that you might want to come back to and review. Maybe that it might end up something that you might have to have as a variable, or something that you might discard. So for the icebreaker, we are looking at swings, and Victoria's already looked at a swing. Oh, could this be another student? Maybe I'm getting mixed up. Did you email me earlier on, Victoria? Yeah, I think I'm thinking of someone else, so I do apologise. Right, so this possibly could be what we're doing this year, because they like to do swings, but we'll treat this as our... Okay, so you do not have a baby to look after. I want to clarify that to everyone. Right, so this is our problem. We're child or objects that children have with them, i.e. sweets, trainers, purse, may well fall off a playground swing when it is in motion. In terror of possible litigation, a town council is proposing to establish a soft landing zone about the swing. So if a child or object does fall off the swing, the consequences of such an accident are reduced. Advise the council on the minimum area that can be established as a soft landing zone. So the first thing that you want to do as a group is to start sketching your problem. Alright, so we will have a child sitting on a swing, and they are holding some sweets, and then the obvious thing here would be that we're going to be looking at some angle here, and we would be putting some velocity. Notice that in my sketch I'm sort of implying that the problem is 2D, and then we are looking for a safe zone. And that we might be coming to some other angle where the child goes of the sweets, and they are gonna maybe shoot outside of my safe zone. So there's another velocity here, velocity of the sweets, velocity of the child. There's maybe well, I'll leave that as a velocity. We can make that into a vector. Okay, so that's my initial sketch. Do anyone want me to put anything else on the initial sketch? So we've all got a kind of like visual model in our minds of what we're going for as a subgroup. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Stephen. Okay, so we've all got this. We've all agreed this is the kind of thing that we're looking for. So now when you have your subgroup meeting, you'd probably want to be doing this online, maybe putting up some sketches that we're going to agree on. This is a sort of like kind of basic sketch model, and from that we then go onto our feature list. Right, so we've got I think everyone's here. Yeah, so for feature list they recommend as a first exercise you go to 21. So I will start putting down some feature ideas. Well, actually we're going to go around the houses, so start lining them up. Don't move on to your second idea until I tell you. So I am going to be putting down initial. So start typing, and if you've typed the same thing as someone else, then well, we'll take the first one that comes up. Initial angle of swing, which I'm going to call theta. Okay. So you all should be typing 2Ds. So yeah, so Sophie, for example, has given me 2D or 3D. So are we looking at a 2D or 3D model? Well done, Sophie. Go on, Natasha, Stephen. Okay, good. Oh, Sophie's on a roll. Or I put how. How does child, sorry for my English, release sweets? Okay, so do they sort of just drop them? Okay, stop. No more for the moment. Oh, you've gone too fast. Okay, what else we got? Uh, 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 um, we got weather conditions. We've got two in one, so I'll split them up. Weather conditions and air resistance. Okay, I don't think you need my help. You can do this by yourself then. Child standing on swing. Okay, that's a good one. Standing or sitting. Position of child. Good. Okay. Where the item is dropped. So angle. I call that of release. So angle of release. So of the sweets. Okay. Okay, yeah, start typing away then. So we got a lot coming in from Sophie. We got max height. Max velocity. We don't have initial velocity. Which I suppose you kind of, that's probably what you mean, I'm guessing. Or the maximum. Got the size of the child. Okay, good stuff. Size of item. So size of sweets. So we are assuming that the object is the sweets. Child modelled as a particle or something else. Model objects as particle. Good, good. Carry on. So, yeah, height of swing. So that's kind of like from floor, as it were. So from the floor. So we're getting a sense of where the fulcrum is, as it were, and the length of the swing. I put chain, actually, length of chain, not rope, because most swings are made out of chain, although that doesn't look like the word chain. The fact that I've put chain means that I now got to say that chain links can be treated as as rope or string, I suppose. What else we got? Are joints in string maintained well? So really what we're looking for there, I think, are you referring to the fulcrum or the links, Victoria? So I'm not too sure which, but both of them, there's questions of friction. Friction in chain or the pivot at the top. is the child being pushed? I'll just grab that from your suggestion. So there's an initial push. The top bit didn't know the word. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll call that the pivot then. Okay, 3 more, I think. How many we need? No, 4 more. Vertical velocity at point of impact. So if I say, I don't necessarily need to say vertical, so if I say velocity at impact, and I'm guessing, Steve, you're referring to the object there, of object. Come on, 3 more. The shape of object, stroke child. I think we've kind of had that before, but never mind. Shape of child, or let's put and or object. Good stuff. 2 more, and then we're done. Come on, I'm waiting with bated breath. Rotational motion of child. Let's put masses. Masses of, and we could also put object there as well. Masses of child, stroke object. Okay. Right, so we stop there. So the next stage then is to get your feature list, and you go back and then you review what are you going to do with it. Are you going to discard it? Is it going to become an assumption, or is it some sort of parameter stroke variable? Let's not worry too much whether it be parameter or variable, and then see how that's going to come into one of these places in your write-up. So let's do a couple. Let's have a look at the first one. So the initial angle of the swing, what we're going to go for. So let's just think in terms of discard. So discard can be D, A can be assumption, V can be variable, P can be parameter. No reason. No, no, no. You 21 apparently is when most people start to give up. So it's a good number to set yourself as a goal, but you could go for hundreds, Sophie, if you want to. So yeah, so I agree. Victoria, V is a variable. So two, is it going to be 2D or 3D? So which one should we select for that? Where do you think we're going to write about that? Yeah, I'll make that as an assumption. How does the child release these sweets? So that's going to be, I don't know, kind of, that's something really to review, I would say. But what do you think? So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be kind of be falling into maybe the assumption and the variable categories. Weather condition. What do you think for weather condition? Uh-huh. I would go for weather condition. I would go for discard myself. You could go for assumption, but I would be trying to avoid the write-up so that I've got just two. If you're over zealous, as it were, in terms of the assumptions, then it's going to look a bit, bit weird. Whereas if you do discard, you can then always come back to that when you go through the iteration process. So it'll be a discard, but then it'll be something when you review your assumptions that you could then say, well, I've come up with this model, it's brilliant, but I haven't considered weather conditions. See, so that's where I would probably stick the weather conditions. So it'd be discard, but I might come back to it in my write-up. Air resistance, that would be an assumption, and we'd probably not. We'd assume no air resistance for our initial model. Standing or sitting position. Again, that's probably a bit like a weather conditions, a D or an A. Whoops, that's supposed to be a D. Okay, so you get the idea, and so then these features will be the starting point for your group's particular model when you do the write-up. So this one is the one that I'm going to email. We've come to the end. Don't worry, guys, we've come to the end. This is the one that we're going to ask you to work on, or I'm going to ask you to work on for this coming week. And it's going to be the same sort of thing. Do a feature list, but for Ben the baker. So Ben the baker wants to bake a loaf of bread. A problem I would like you to consider is baking a loaf of bread for a local baker. You might want to develop the mathematical problem statement or just leave it as a generic Ben needs to bake a loaf of bread statement. Then post on your tutorial group your mathematical problem statement along with your suggestions of a list of features for this problem. So this is a good and fun, put a smiley face on everyone, this is a good and fun way to get your tutorial group working on an initial sort of problem. Okay, so that's what we've got as homework for the coming week. And you have seen, I won't go over this now, you can read through this. So you've seen on your TMA4 you've been given your first modelling activity, and I've written up some notes there for you to consider of how to deal with it. Okay, So I'm sending this out as a PDF, and you can then sort of like read through that before you respond to those questions. And I think I've spoken to some of you about it already. Okay, so that's it. You get a rough idea of timelines tonight. I'm chasing up Sunday, seeing if people are interacting with the forums, and by Sunday and hopefully by Wednesday you've all contributed to my fun activity of Ben the Baker. Okay, is that making a little bit more sense? Hopefully. No, the one on Sunday is sort of more chasing up. Is have you contributed to Ben the Baker or gone onto the tutor forum? It's more like that. Okay. Okay, guys. So if you can make it Sunday, please do. If not, then again I will record them both via screen capture and the OU system. Not a problem if you can't make it now. Right, I'm going to sign off now then. Yes, Sophie. So go and shoot your forum. I will email out this PDF. Okay, and you can put a feature list for Ben the Baker. Right? Is that okay, Sophie? Okay, cool. Bye bye.